What's going on, football fans? It's me, J.R. Clark, back with another Pound for Pound ATL Freestyle Friday edition. Appreciate y'all joining me this week as we dive into another topic. All the coaching searching stuff is kind of behind us now. We've had the press conference for Raheem Morris. We've had just about all the coaching hires announced. There might be a few ancillary ones here or there, but nothing that I would consider to be like major. So now it's time to move on to what I would consider to be the next biggest topic. One that's going to dominate headlines throughout this whole offseason until a move is made. So that's something to keep in mind every time you see it linked or see an article come up. Just tell yourself, yeah, of course that's what's going to have to happen. There's going to be a lot of us talking about it until a move is made. And what I'm talking about, of course, is the QB position. The fact that is still pretty much vacant and up in the air as far as the Falcons are concerned. I mean, you heard what Terry Fontenot said and what Raheem Morris said during their press conferences and the interviews that came afterwards. They pretty much acknowledged that without saying it, that Desmond Ritter and Tyler Heineke will not be in like the battle for QB1. Um, they realized that the QB play last year, whatever you want to chalk it up to, was unacceptable, and it's something that they're going to have to address. Now, a couple days ago, I put a tweet out. So if you're not following me on Twitter, I suggest that you do because I'm always like giving anybody chances to like crowdsource or what have you. I'm always engaging the crowd there, and I put out a tweet. So let's take a look at that. All right. So I said, which one would you prefer? And it was a poll, and I did this on the 3rd of February. It was over the weekend as I was watching like the Senior Bowl and all that other jazz that was going on. Um, and it was the three options, as you could see, and they were done. These options were done on purpose to be more thought provoking than anything else. It was Baker Mayfield and Spencer Rattler as one option, trading a first round pick for Justin Fields, and then trading three first round picks, trade to number three for three first round picks. Now, I'm not going to say it's going to take three first round picks to get up to three, but the idea is that I wanted to make it difficult for you to make a decision, right? Uh, and if you didn't see this poll, you can definitely put your answer below down in the comments because um, it's just an interesting thought and it's an interesting um, thought exercise. Neither one of these choices are supposed to be an easy choice or a perfect choice because I wanted y'all to think about it. And while you're thinking about it, let's just go ahead and hit that intro. Okay, so back to the poll. As you can see, everybody was more comfortable with trading three first round picks to get to number three than they were anything else. But again, this leads into the biggest thing going into this offseason is how do you fix the QB position? It's the most important position on the field, and how do we go about fixing it? So let's take a look at some of the options out there, starting with the Baker Mayfield / Rattler. That option there is, hey, we're going to draft a guy, whether it be Bo Nix, Michael Penix, Spencer Rattler, a second tier guy, and have him learn for a year or two, three, like a Jordan Love type deal underneath a veteran that we're going to bring in, right? So that's the thought. That's what that one represents. Okay. So let's take a look at some of those veterans. The first one up is a Kirk Cousins. Played for the past few years for Minnesota. Played at a pretty high level. Does have the stigma that he wilts under prime time, which I think this past year under Kevin O'Connell last year and this year that they were doing a good job of moving off of that stigma. But let's look at some of the pros and cons of a bringing in a Kirk Cousins. Uh, a pro, he fits that win now mode. That's something that you kind of heard Raheem Morris and Terry Fontenot kind of allude to during their press conferences. They feel like they have the pieces in place. They feel like it's just basically a QB away from being able to compete, and a lot of us feel that same way. So that's a pro. He fits the win now mode or now model. Con, he's a 35-year-old QB. So if everything plays out perfectly, he's you got him for 3 to 5 years before the fall off happens, which speaks to the idea of bringing in somebody like a second tier QB to buy their time and learn, right? So that's a con. He is older. Pro, he's comfortable in a heavy play action scheme. He's very comfortable in turning his back to the defense post snap and then turning back around and firing. That's a skill, right? He has to be able to process what he sees, what he knows what's going to be there. If I'm not mistaken, Kevin O'Connell come out of the Sean McVay system, so um, shouldn't be much of a learning curve as far as that is concerned. Con, he's coming off an Achilles injury. Now, that could it could take a little while for him to really bounce back, but those aren't as devastating as knee injuries. But anytime you're coming off of a season-ending injury, you never really know how that's going to affect. Another pro, very accurate QB. Before he got hurt last year, he was up to almost 70% accuracy or completion percentage. Has a 66 or 67% completion percentage for his career. He is the example of like the best case scenario for a fourth round QB, right? So that's what Kirk Cousins was, and he has made a good career out of it. Con, if you want to look at it this way, he's going to cost you upwards of $40 million a year. Every deal that he has signed since leaving Washington has been a fully guaranteed deal. So you're probably looking at $120 million deal if you sign him for 3 years, something like that, 120 to 130, maybe even 135. So he's going to cost you, and it's going to be instant hits on your cap. And now you're going to not have nearly the flexibility that you had. But what he does represent is stability at the quarterback position. And depending on how you want to look at it, you might also end up with Justin Jefferson because he has made a comment that he would like to follow Kirk Cousins. They have a really good connection. So that's the surface level pros and cons of bringing in a guy like a Kirk Cousins, or well, not like, but bringing in Kirk Cousins. Second up, Russell Wilson. This is not one of my favorites. Now, granted, he had a good statistical season under Sean Payton, but you have to be able to rein Russell in. You cannot let Russ cook. Okay. So that's the thing is like, can Zach Robinson harness the good of Russell Wilson? Again, a pro, he fits the win now model. What I mean by that is you know what you're getting with Russell Wilson, potentially. And he should be able to hit the ground running. Uh Terry Fontenot should be able to get some good intel on him, working with Sean Payton for as long as he did. They should be able to like pick up a phone and have a conversation. Khan, again, 35 years old. So that's, something you got to keep in mind. You're bringing him in for, 2, 3 years, 4 years top, something like that. Khan, well, again, a pro. He's comfortable in a play action heavy scheme. That's what he did quite a bit in um, Seattle. What they did, there in Denver, at least for a little while. Um, so the reason why I keep bringing that up, play action schemes mean that you have to be able to like process information, which is one of the key factors that we heard Raheem and them talk about was the decision making, the processing is got to be up there for their quarterback, um, which makes sense coming out of that McVay system. Khan, 2 years in Denver, not sure what he is. What I mean by that is you saw the year under Nathaniel Hackett where he looked lost, where they quote unquote let Russ cook, and it looked like, um, man, it looked horrible. It looked worse than a can of raviolis or a can of spaghettios versus a filet mignon. Okay. So but then you had this past year under Sean Payton where he was very productive, um, looked really good again, but you could tell the clashing of, um, egos and stuff like that from Sean Payton to Russell Wilson, which eventually led over into, okay, we're going to bench you because we don't want to pay you the guaranteed monies that are going to kick in. Um, Now, I don't want to trade for Russ. So if it's Russell Wilson, that means he's gotten cut and we bring him in for next to nothing. Um, Now, Pro is accurate QB, 66% completion percentage last year. Had I think only like 8 interceptions, um, 30 some odd touchdowns. So yeah, I mean, he's shown that when he's reined in, he's still got the ability, right? So um, it'll be interesting. Last con is again, he's going to cost you money. Like I don't unless he just gets cut and has a ton of money that Denver is going to pay him. I don't see where he's going to come here for pennies on the dollar, so to speak. So he's gonna these two, Kirk Cousins and Russell Wilson. You're right back into paying a hefty salary for a QB. So just keep that in mind when you see this pop up. All right, next up. This one, oddly enough, is kind of one of my favorites as far as the vets go. This is Baker Mayfield, obviously. Pro, he fits the win now mold. First overall pick a few years back. Con, he's bounced around a lot. He's went from Cleveland to Carolina to the Rams, which is a good thing. We'll get to that in a second, but to the Rams and then to the Bucks. Um, a pro that Rams thing we were talking about. He's worked with, he's been in the building with Raheem Morris and Zach Robinson. Zach Robinson and KJ Black were very instrumental in getting him ready. Where he played 3-4 games for the Rams, won one of them, and performed admirably in all of them, right? Enough to where Tampa Bay decided to pay him, $4 or $5 million and then give him the starting job. Which this is a pro, I guess you could say. Like he had, uh, you know, it's I've got it listed as a con. He's coming off of his best year, right? With Dave Canellis down there in Tampa Bay. So the question is, can he reproduce that kind of performance? Can he's already stated that it's going to depend on who the play caller is to where he goes and plays. He realizes that that's a huge part of his ability to play last year was the play caller, putting him in a good position to succeed. So can he replicate that somewhere else? That's going to be the biggest thing. But what I consider a pro, he's only 28. Okay. So you bring him in, even if you draft somebody in the second, third round to potentially take over, I mean, this could potentially be your answer for the next decade. Possibly. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure because he hasn't done it consistently enough to not get moved from team to team. It does sound like the Buccaneers want him back, but it'll be interesting to see if somebody else outbids him, outbids them, namely us, with the familiarity of Zach Robinson and Raheem Morris. We seem like a likely destination outside of Tampa for Baker. Um, Natural leader and tough. I know he's missed some games, but he's a tough guy. Naturally, like is an energetic, charismatic type player. Um, so that seems to work well, on the football field, especially from QB position. The con is, I think he's going to want a bigger deal. So I don't think he's going to bet on himself again with a short term $4 or $5 million deal. He's shown that he can do it. So I'm assuming that he's going to want a long term deal and is going to want to be paid at least like a Daniel Jones. So that's the question that the front office is going to have to answer. They already have some experience with him, so that does give them a leg up there. Do they want to then pay him? So all right, last veteran that we're going to talk about, and he's veteran, yes, but not. He's like the lowest tiered veteran as far as like experience, and that is Justin Fields. Depending on what Chicago does in the draft, whether they trade or whether they, trade the pick or pick Caleb Williams, which we all feel like is going to be your first overall pick. Um, if they pick him, then Justin's probably gone. One of the big pros is, like I said, he's still young. He's only third year in the league, going into the fourth year. Um, One of the cons, though, he's not really been consistent enough throwing. Now, is that due to the fact that he's had to learn different systems multiple years in a row? Which again, he'd have to come in here and learn a system here. So don't automatically just assume if we trade for him or do whatever that he's going to automatically be a success, because he's going to have to come here and learn. Um, a you know Pro is that you could possibly get the fifth year option. I'm not 100% sure how that works. If like Chicago has to pick it up or what have you for you to then get it yourself. So that's a possibility. Major con is his accuracy hasn't been great, 58 or 59 to 60%. Can he bring that up? Because and does that speak to the processing? That's one of the major qualities that Raheem and them were looking for, is the ability to process. So can he operate the offense the way they want? Pro, it'd be a homecoming. He went to high school here in Marietta area, and I think a lot of the fan base would be juiced for him to come home and play for the Falcons, for the home team. That's something that Terry Fontenot seems to like to do, bring Georgia grown players back home. So here's a prime opportunity to bring an exciting electric QB back to um, his home state, where he attended high school, where he started his college career, and where a lot of people really would, I think, get behind him and galvanize the fan base. And then a con is like you're gonna have to pay him soon. Like, so do you get more than a year to see if he's what you want, right? Before you have to pay him. So that's gonna be a big thing to have to weigh there. Is how much time do you get before you have to pay him? Um, so that is the veterans there that I would that's the ones I would consider. I know like Geno Smith might be out there. Not a big Geno fan. Wouldn't trade for a Zach Wilson. Wouldn't trade for a Daniel Jones. Those guys can stay where they are. Or you know, go you sell car insurance or try to sell some cars, one or the other. But it's not those guys. The veterans that I've listed here are the only ones that I myself would consider bringing into Atlanta. So that leaves one other option, one other way to get a QB, and that is through the draft. Now, we currently sit at the eighth overall pick, and I don't think that's going to be high enough to get a starting caliber QB. Could be wrong. Somebody like a Michael Penix or a Bo Nix or a JJ McCarthy might turn out to be starters, but the way it looks right now, I've not dug super deep into the QB class. Obviously, will as the we draw closer to the draft, I'll get even deeper into it. But these three guys right here on screen are the ones that are the cream of the crop. And that's Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, and Drake May, with Caleb Williams right now being the belle of the ball. So to get them kind of going back to that poll earlier, I think the obviously trading up to one, but that's going to cost you a lot. Okay. So the idea was like, would you be willing to trade 3 first rounds, this year's, next year's, and the following years, to secure a spot to grab one of these 3? We're already starting to see rumblings. I saw, I think it was Lewis Riddick talking about he'd take Jaden Daniels over Drake May. We've already seen that like Caleb Williams might not want to be going to Chicago. So anyway, if you're trading up for one of these 3. Me personally, right now, I like Jaden Daniels. He's the one that has caught my eye. I have watched the most of his tape, and I'm going to get to the other guys as well. But right off the rip, my biggest concern with Caleb Williams is the system that he came out of or is coming out of. That Lincoln Riley system has not been super kind. Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray hasn't been super kind to those guys transitioning to the NFL. Now, Caleb Williams may have transcendent talent, but do we think we have the situation to make the best, get the best out of him? And you're going to have to trade a lot to get there. You're going to have to trade, you know, multiple first round picks, multiple second and third round picks, and possibly a player to get all the way up to 1 to secure the right to draft him. So these are your interesting options as it stands right now. It's those veterans, which really sounds like a veteran is what they're wanting to begin with. I could be wrong on that. We'll know more as the process plays out. But what it really sounds like is that they want an elite level processor, and these 3 guys seem like they have done well enough on that end as far as the draft prospects go. So, um, I don't know. Let me know what y'all think. Let me know what you would prefer to do. Would you prefer to sign one of the veterans I talked about and try to win now, so to speak, or hope you can replicate what the Houston Texans did, which is draft a QB and make the playoffs in the same year? Something that isn't necessarily, because make no mistake, you take either one of these 3, there's going to be a transition period. They're not just going to necessarily hit the ground running. So there's going to be a period that they have to transition from the college game to the pro game, and that may be rocky at times. But also, with that being said, it's that's one of these 2 things I think is going to happen. Obviously, big shocker, but you're either drafting a QB high or you're going to hitch your wagon to a veteran, and then possibly draft a second tier QB. If we end up with an extra second round pick from the Calvin Ridley deal, I would love to sign somebody like a Baker, or sign somebody like maybe even Russ, and then draft a guy in the second round, like possibly a Penix, somebody who is, got all the arm talent in the world, seems to have a super smart IQ, and give him a chance to sit and learn for a year or 2. The problem with Penix and Nix is they're on the older side. So how long do you want them to sit? But anyway, well, that's what I got for y'all. I appreciate y'all tuning in this Friday. Keep your eye on the channel. We'll be back live next Tuesday, and I will be bringing y'all something again next Friday. So appreciate y'all as always. Y'all can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Grim1128. You can follow Jonathan at Jonathan M. Holder. As he would say, come by, say hi. Thank you for your time. And as always, Falcons fans, rise up.